Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about a golf tournament that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the Wyndham Championship. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, why does Mike love the Wyndham Championship so much? Well, answer is pretty simple. Sedgefield Country Club is about 20 minutes from my front door. And it's a tournament that I have been to. I have driven through this course. I've never gotten to play it. If there's any Sedgefield members out there that would like to help me get on, please let me know. But, it's a golf course that I've been to. It's a golf course that is just a fun experience for me because you get to see the PGA Tour guys play a weekend of North Carolina golf, which is not like what you would see in Florida or Texas or California or anywhere else. It's a little different, and it's definitely really cool to see the PGA Tour guys attack it. What do I mean by North Carolina golf exactly? Well, we're going to break that down here in just a second on this preview. On this episode, we're going to break down the course, and then we're going to see if we can identify some winners here at the Wyndham. Whether you are playing DFS, whether you are betting, or whether you are playing one and done this week, we're going to do our best to try to highlight the type of golf that does well here at Sedgefield Country Club and just who in the field can succeed and be the winner here this week. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. If you are listening on the audio format, please rate and review. Again, helps me out a lot, shows me a lot of support, helps get the channel noticed, and I really do appreciate it. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start with our preview of Sedgefield Country Club. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Sedgefield Country Club. So Sedgefield Country Club is located in Greensboro, North Carolina, and it is a par 70 and is a little over 7,100 yards. Now, this tournament has been at Sedgefield since 2008. For a long time, this tournament was known as the Greater Greensboro Open, and it was hosted at Forest Oaks Country Club, which is actually on kind of the opposite side of Greensboro from where Sedgefield Country Club is at. And basically in 2008, a lot of people dumped some money into Sedgefield to get it a restoration. And then with that restoration came the new host site of the Wyndham Championship at Sedgefield as opposed to Forest Oaks. I played at Forest Oaks. It's actually a super nice course. Not necessarily like nice by PGA Tour standards, but a very nice course, one that is very easy to get onto for the public to play for a course that used to host the PGA Tour event. Anyway, so Sedgefield Country Club is a Donald Ross design. Now, other notable Donald Ross designs on the PGA Tour include Detroit Golf Club, which is home of the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and Eastlake, which is home of the Tour Championship, as well as this year's PGA Championship at Oak Hill. That was also a Donald Ross design. Now, one thing that a lot of people compare Sedgefield to, a lot of people compare Sedgefield to Pete Dye designs, and I kind of get that a little bit. There's a lot of similarities between this and a Pete Dye design. There actually used to be a second course that was a part of Sedgefield Country Club that was designed by Pete Dye. It was formerly known as the Sedgefield Country Club Dye course. It is now just known as the Cardinal by Pete Dye. It is not fully affiliated with Sedgefield Country Club. I have played that course as well. It absolutely kicked my butt. It's a very difficult course. Now, how's that for local knowledge, right? Anyway, so this is also notable because this is the last week before the FedEx Cup Playoffs. So there's a lot of guys that are in action this week that have a lot of motivation to play well because they're trying to get inside that top 70 to play next week in Memphis. And with it comes quite a big check to make it to the FedEx Cup Playoffs. With some of them, they're going to be looking to earn their tour card for next year by qualifying for the FedEx Cup Playoffs. So a lot of motivation factors this week at Sedgefield. Now, Sedgefield is a course where the fairways, rough, and greens are all Bermuda grass. We're back in the Southeast United States to kind of a lot of the same agronomy that you see in the Florida swing at the start of the calendar year. We're out of the Midwest bent grass season that you see in the summer months. Now, this is also a very unique test because this is the third shortest course on the PGA Tour schedule. It is a par 70, and it plays a little over 7,100 yards. We're looking on YouTube at the official scorecard for members play as opposed to PGA Tour play. Hole 18 is a par 5 for members, and it plays as a par 4 at this tournament. It is about 500 yards at this tournament. And it's the third shortest course on the PGA Tour schedule. It's not going to be one that, looks to, kind of bully guys with distance or, try to make it too difficult by being long for long's sake. It's just not that. It's a course that is a very positional golf course. It's tree-lined fairways, and you're going to have to, hit fairways and hit greens if you want to play well here. There are only two par 5s here at Sedgefield, hole 5 and hole 15, and they are very scoreable. You're going to have to score well on those holes if you want to win this week. What's also notable is that there are 8, count them, 8 par fours that are in between 400 and 450 yards this week. That is a very key distance. What that's going to do is that's going to lump a lot of approach shots to be kind of in between 100 and 175 yards at the max, depending on how golfers decide to play their tee shots on those holes. But you don't really see that many courses that have that many holes with that similar distances. And, the reason why this course is still pretty tough is because of how narrow it is. By PGA Tour standards, this is a pretty narrow course. If you were to go out, and like I said, I've driven through this course before. It's, it kind of winds through a bunch of neighborhoods. It doesn't feel that narrow driving through it. But when the grandstands go up and the rough gets grown out and the trees get grown out in the summer, it really does start to have a narrow feel to it. Pretty much every fairway is going to be tree lined here at this course. If you look on Google Earth, there is not a whole lot of room in between the fairway and then like trees and pine straw. And if you end up in the trees and in the pine straw, you are going to be in for a world of hurt. So, like I said, what is the formula to success here at Sedgefield? Well, find the fairways, keep them out of the trees, keep it out of the rough, but then also be money with your approach shots. These greens are above average size, but they don't really play like above average size greens. Donald Ross greens are usually very crowned, meaning like the green sits above the fairway or like the bunker or the short game chipping area. And so you've got to hit it and have it hold that green without it running off the sides. And then there's also a lot of multi-tier greens where you can just hit your shot to the wrong part of the green and you're going to be staring at a 3-putt just because of how much the green is going to have break. Now, I do think also this course's main defense is its speed. In the summer months, this course can get really, really firm and fast, and that's kind of the main way that they try to make this course play somewhat difficult and have it not turn into too much of a birdie fest. Now, another thing that I can say, having been to this tournament and having driven through this golf course, one thing that doesn't show up on the TV screen is how much undulation this course has. There are some fairways at this course that are really slopey and some greens at this course that are really slopey. I'd almost compare them to Augusta National in that regard. And so when you're looking on your TV and you're like, well, that shot doesn't look that hard, that putt doesn't look that hard, I promise you there is a lot more undulation than to meets the eye. Now, if you look at the list of winners here, this is not exactly a bomber's paradise. This is not a course that, a lot of long hitters have won. You see Tom Kim, Kevin Kisner, JT Poston, Brent Snedeker, all among the shortest players on the PGA Tour. Siwoo Kim and Webb Simpson probably have like the best combined history here in terms of they've won this event and they tend to play well year after year. Just kind of with the lack of distance on the course and the emphasis on accuracy, you're going to end up with, kind of shorter hitters ending up shining here because they're not getting boxed out by distance. Their main disadvantage isn't such of a disadvantage here at Sedgefield. Also, another thing that's noticeable if you look at the winners is while this isn't a true like birdie fest like we've seen, scores can get pretty low. Generally, if you see a little bit of precipitation in the week leading up or the weekend of the tournament, when the course gets a little bit softer, that allows the scores to get lower. But pretty much in the entire last decade, the winning score has been minus 15 or lower. More often than not, it has been in the minus 20s. So what can we look at in terms of comp courses for here at the Wyndham? Well, first thing is I do think it's important to look at Donald Ross greens. So we're talking about Rocket Mortgage, Tour Championship, Oak Hill. Putting on Donald Ross greens is a very unique skill that some people have, some people don't. And so what I did here using the tools at rickrungood.com was look at who the best putters have been on Donald Ross greens in their career. Carl Yuan is the leader, but he's only played one tournament there. Same with MJ Duffy, who placed third. But with guys of substantial sample size, you've got Justin Lauer, who tends to be a pretty good putter anyway, Taylor Moore, Adam Hadwin, and Denny McCarthy there as kind of the top guys. Denny McCarthy, again, usually a pretty good putter week in and week out, so not shocking to see him at the top of a putting list. Now, in terms of other comps, I think there are I think it's very worth noting this week that course history at Sedgefield is pretty sticky. Guys who play well at Sedgefield tend to play well at Sedgefield again and again and again, just because it's kind of a similar skill set that, kind of pans itself out. And I do think the intricacies of some of these, slopey shots and some of these very undulating greens can definitely, pay dividends if you're able to, kind of just have a knack for them and being able to have history here, right? So in terms of strokes gained at Sedgefield, Ben Griffin, Sam Burns, Taylor Moore, and Max McGreevy are the top 4, but they've only played this tournament one time. Sungjae Im is 5th and Webb Simpson is 6th, and both of them have massive sample sizes. Among other guys with big sample size, Russell Henley comes in at 9th. Now, in terms of comps that are not Sedgefield, I have placed 5 comps that I'm kind of looking at for Sedgefield Country Club. The first are Harbour Town and TPC Sawgrass. For whatever reason, you tend to have a lot of similar winners pop up at Sedgefield and Harbour Town and Sedgefield and TPC Sawgrass. And, those are both Pete Dye design golf courses. They're both shorter golf courses. They're both Bermuda grass golf courses. We've seen Siwoo Kim and Webb Simpson both play well at both those courses. So it's, not really shocking to see the 2 of those. And then I've also got 3 other courses here that are kind of shorter positional, par 70, kind of accuracy is a premium over distance. And that is Colonial Country Club, Waialae Country Club, and Sea Island Resort, hosts of the Charles Schwab Challenge, the Sony Open, and the RSM Classic. So when you put all those in a blender, who comes out on top? Austin Eckroat, Harry Hall, Matt Kuchar, Webb Simpson, and Justin Thomas are the top 5. And I tend to think that's a pretty solid list of 5 right there of guys who, you think of shorter golf courses. They've had some good performances there. Other guys that are pretty notably good, Adam Svensson, Russell Henley, Chris Kirk, and Adam Scott with, pretty big sample sizes are up there near the top. Now on rickrungood.com, I did load up a custom model and I put an emphasis on, that key distance of par 4s, putting on Bermuda grass, strokes gained at Sedgefield, strokes gained at other short courses, as well as driving accuracy and approach. And in my model, I ended up feeling pretty good with the guys that came out on top. I think these guys are pretty indicative of the skill set that plays well here at Sedgefield. The top 5 ended up being Sungjae Im, Denny McCarthy, Russell Henley, Sam Burns, and Alex Smalley. Like I said, I feel pretty good about that group of 5 and, how their skill set plays out at Sedgefield. All right, so aside from all the stats and all the modeling, can we pick out a winner here this week at Sedgefield? Well, let's go ahead and stop talking about the course, and let's go ahead and start seeing if we can find a golfer that's going to end up winning this week. All right, so looking at the board for the DraftKings pricing this week, I think the DraftKings went a little bit different in how they determined their prices this week. So if I'm being totally honest, just without having seen the salaries, just thinking about pure talent and skill and recent form and, guys you would pick to win, I don't think there's that much of a gap between who DraftKings has at the very top of the board and Sungjae Im, going all the way down to Denny McCarthy, who's a full $2,000 less than him on DraftKings. I think back to the Open Championship where, you look at this cast of characters right here, and I think Shane Lowry was the only one that was above 8,500. And I think, Denny McCarthy might have been the bottom out at 7,300. So, all these guys, they're kind of in a similar range in terms of their win equity and their talent. But what I think you're paying for and what they did on DraftKings is course history. You look at what some of these guys near the top have done at Sedgefield, and you got some guys with elite course history at the top of the board. Sungjae Im, 4 straight top 25 finishes. Hideki Matsuyama has played well here. Russell Henley has played well here. So I really think that's what they did with their pricing. And so I don't think it's going to be uncommon this week on DraftKings to kind of start your lineup in this 9K range and just kind of fill it out with, more of a balanced build because a lot of these guys are of similar talent levels. So who are the guys that are going to be making my lineups this week? Well, the first guy that I want to talk about is going to be Russell Henley. I think he's going to be pretty chalky, but I think what he has done recently and what he's done at this tournament both merit attention. So before missing the cut at the Open Championship, which is a phrase you're going to hear a lot on this podcast, a lot of the guys in this tournament missed the cut at the Open Championship. And I'm kind of willing to forgive that because, you're playing across the sea in different weather conditions, different style of golf. I'm kind of willing to forgive that, going from links golf to just pure Parkland American style golf. So before his missed cut, Russell Henley had piled up 5 straight finishes that were 35th or better. 4 of them were top 20s. And he did so by being an elite ball striker who also had been pretty good with the putter as well. And this is a course that kind of rewards that elite ball striking, right? You don't have to be long off the tee. You can put yourself in a really good position by being good on approach, which is what Russell Henley typically is. And at this tournament, his last 3 appearances have been a T5, a T7, and a T9. That T7 in 2021 is actually kind of deceptive. Russell Henley went into that final round with the lead and ended up coming 1 stroke shy of the 6-man playoff that was, decided to Wyndham in 2021. It was incredible television to watch, by the way. So basically, that T7 is really almost like a T2. He probably should have won that week, if we're being totally honest. But Russell Henley's great history at this event, as well as great ball strike in recent form. He's going to be popular in all DFS formats, but I think he's a guy who has a very good chance to win this tournament this week. Next up, I do want to talk about Sam Burns, who might not be on a lot of people's radar because he hasn't really played a whole lot of golf this summer, and he hasn't really popped like for a whole lot of great finishes this summer, or really this whole calendar year, I guess. So, what I like about Sam Burns is the fact that there are two things really that stand out. And first is Bermuda is his best putting surface. He used to be nicknamed Bermuda Burns. Second is you look at his track record on shorter positional golf courses, and it's pretty much elite. T6 at Colonial this year. He won at Colonial last year. He won at Austin Country Club this year, another shorter positional golf course. T15 at Harbour Town, shorter positional golf course. He has 2 wins at Copperhead, at the Valspar Championship, and he came in 6th place there this year as well. I just think that for whatever reason, this type of course really suits Sam Burns' game pretty well. He tends to navigate it pretty well. We tend to think him as a good driver of the golf ball, but I think he's able to kind of throttle down and hit 3-wood or hit, a long iron off the tee and able to still play pretty well. So I just really like how everything sets up for Sam Burns in that regard. And his history at this event kind of tracks with that. He's only played it once. He played it in 2020, which was a pretty good week for the Wyndham. There were a lot of good guys that showed up that week. And he gained strokes in every category and finished T13 on only a $7,200 salary back then. So I really do like Sam Burns this week as well. If I go into the 10K range, I'm probably going to play a little bit of Sung Jae, probably play a little bit of Henley, but I think Sam Burns is probably going to be my main guy. But like I said, I think it's totally viable this week to just kind of hang out in the 9K range on DraftKings and build your lineup from those guys. Now, I do think that in the 9K range, the popular play is going to be JT Poston. And I think it's largely because of his recent form. His last 4 finishes have been T6, T6, T41, and T2. He has been absolutely elite on approach for that stretch, and he has shown an ability to spike with the putter. Pretty much everybody who wins here at the Wyndham has had a spike putting week in the week that they won. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're good putters long term, but it means that they showed up to this course, they knew how to attack the greens, and they putted well. At this event, it's a bit of a mixed bag for Poston. He did win the 2019 Wyndham Championship, but he has been up and down since. He missed 2 cuts in 2020 and 2021, followed up by a T21 last year, and he has gained strokes putting in each of the last 5 appearances here at this event. Where it has gone wrong for him has been off the tee and on approach. He's genuinely not a good off the tee player because he's not a long driver of the golf ball, but you do expect JT Poston to gain on approach, which is what he's been doing recently. I expect him to be super popular in the 9K range this week. Now, on the opposite end of that scale, like nobody's going to be playing Justin Thomas this week. Now, it's a big deal in Greensboro that Justin Thomas is coming to the Wyndham, right? Because normally this tournament doesn't attract like the biggest names. Like it was either a year or 2 ago where Ricky Fowler was coming to the Wyndham, and that was the big deal. It generally, the only time that like super big names and major champions play this event is when they need FedEx Cup points, which is the situation for Justin Thomas. He needs a top 10 finish this week to pretty much guarantee his spot in the FedEx Cup playoffs. But he's been objectively bad recently, and he hasn't really played this tournament since he hit his career peak. I'm probably full fading Justin Thomas this week, and I think a lot of other people are. If you're a big leverage guy in DFS, you're going to have a lot of leverage if you play Justin Thomas this week. Now, the other ownership pivot in this week that I don't think a lot of people are going to be rushing to play in DFS, who I think absolutely has the talent and the skill level to win this tournament, is Shane Lowry. So when you look at Shane Lowry's stat profile, he is generally pretty good in the ball striking. And the putter and the around the green play can either be really hot or really cold or just somewhere in the middle. But the ball striking tends to be pretty good. That's what kind of draws me to him at this tournament is, he goes to all these courses and ball strikes it well. And all he needs is a good putting week to have a really good week. Now, last year at the Wyndham, Shane Lowry was here, made the cut, lost 7.5 strokes putting, finished T83. It was like last place of anybody who made the cut. But other than that, he's got another missed cut in 2018, but a T42, a T7, and a T23, where in his 3 good showings, he's been really good with the putter, and he's been really good with the ball striking. Almost every year he's been showing up here at the Wyndham. So I do think this is a pretty good spot for Shane Lowry, and I think he's going to have a little bit of attention off of him as opposed to some of the other guys in the 9K range, like Siwoo Kim, who is coming off a back-to-back missed cuts, but I wouldn't let that really deter me because they've kind of been all putting related. He's kind of given it all away with the putter. He's been absolutely elite in the ball striking categories since like March. And his history at short positional golf courses has no equal. He won the Sony Open this year at Waialae. He came in, well, he missed the cut there, but he has a very good history at Harbour Town. He's won the Players Championship before, and he just tends to show up well at these short positional golf courses. His history at the Wyndham is probably second to only Webb Simpson. In 7 appearances, he's got 2 missed cuts and a withdrawal, but those other 4 appearances have all been top 5 finishes. First, T2, T3, and 5th place. I just can't say enough about Siwoo's history here at the Wyndham. I think a lot of other people are aware of this as well, so I think he will surely be highly owned in DraftKings. But you talk about another guy who absolutely has the talent and the skill level to win this tournament outright. Siwoo Kim is that guy. All right, now looking down at the 8K range, I think that I mentioned his name already, but I think the obvious play and the obvious high ownership guy in DFS this week is going to be Denny McCarthy. So let's go ahead and take a look at Denny's stat profile. So Denny's another guy that missed the cut at Royal Liverpool. Totally willing to forgive him. His last 4 starts before that had all been 20 or better, and 3 of the 4 had been 7th place or better. He is one of the best putters on planet Earth. And this is a place where he can actually kind of take advantage of that skill set because this is a pretty difficult putting golf course. So I really like that for Denny McCarthy, but also he's been really good in the ball striking categories recently. His history at this event has been kind of ho-hum. He did show up here last year and missed the cut, but before that, it had been T15, T9, T22, and T36. He's gained strokes putting in every appearance. It's just been the ball striking that's kind of let him down, but he's been really good with the ball striking this year. So I do think this is a different, most improved Denny McCarthy. And if I had to pick one guy to win this tournament at their odds, it would probably be Denny McCarthy. And for that reason, I think he's going to be super popular in DFS format. So if you play Denny McCarthy, you better find a way to be different with your lineup in another way. Now, one way you can do that is by playing Cameron Davis. Because I think what a lot of people's perceptions of Cameron Davis is that he's this big, long-hitting bomber that just kind of, smashes it all over the place and doesn't hit a lot of fairways. But he kind of doesn't do that all the time. If you look at his history, it's actually pretty good at short golf courses. Even though we do think of him as this mad bomber, right? You look at just this year, and it goes back further. He's been this way for his entire career, but just this year, T6 at Sawgrass, T7 at Harbour Town, T4 at Donald Ross designed Oak Hill Country Club. He missed the cut at Colonial, but he's been good at that event. And then he's won at Detroit Golf Club, which is another Donald Ross design. So I just really think that this sets up pretty well for him. And his history at the Wyndham backs that up. He played this event in 2019 and 2020, gained over 4 strokes putting in both appearances, and came in T22 and T15 in both those tries. I think with a lot of people just looking to, just smash Denny into their lineups, I think Cam Davis is going to go really underlooked. I think he makes for a really solid play on DraftKings this week. And I think, honestly, I think he's a really good top 10 bet. I think what you're going to get out of Cam Davis this week is either a top 10 or a missed cut. And I think top 10 is more likely than missed cut. I really do like Cam Davis this week. Now, next up, here's a little bit of local knowledge for you. Alex Smalley is a member at Sedgefield Country Club. The guy who played his college golf at Duke, resides in Greensboro in the offseason, and is a member at Sedgefield. So if there's anybody who should have any kind of local knowledge of this course, it is Alex Smalley. And what I really like about Alex Smalley, history at the Wyndham withstanding, he's been an absolute fiend in the ball striking lately. 4 of his last 5 events, again, forgiving his trip across the pond and his miscut at the Scottish Open, 4 of his last 5 events, he has gained over 4 strokes in the ball striking categories, and he's doing a lot of it on approach, which is what you really like to see at a course like Sedgefield, where you're going to really have to dial in those approach shots. Now, in his 2 appearances at the Wyndham, he's came in T29 and T13. He's gained strokes putting in both appearances. He's gained strokes off the tee in both appearances. So I really like the fact that you're getting a guy who has great knowledge of a course that course history tends to be pretty sticky, and he's at a very affordable price on DraftKings. It would not shock me if Alex Smalley was, got his first win this week here at like his favorite course on planet Earth. Now, if you're looking for pivots from Alex Smalley, I don't think Adam Hadwin is a bad one. His recent form leaves a little to be desired. He's the events that he's done well, it's been really dependent on the putter. And the events that he hasn't done well, it's been not great in the ball striking categories, but he is very accurate off the tee. He is not the longest off the tee either. But I kind of like Taylor Moore as a pivot off of Alex Smalley. He's a guy who's been super boom or bust in this calendar year. He's got a lot of missed cuts, but he's got a lot of great finishes as well, like a T4 at Detroit Golf Club, like a T4 with his partner at the Zurich Classic. That's another shorter positional golf course. T11 at Harbour Town, shorter positional golf course. Won the Valspar Championship at Copperhead, which is a shorter positional golf course. So I kind of think his skill set really aligns well with what you're going to see at the Wyndham this week. And his history at the Wyndham, he has played this event one time last year, and he came in 5th place. He gained strokes in every category. So I really like how that sets up for Taylor Moore. I think he makes for a really good pivot off of Alex Smalley if you do not want to eat the ownership on Alex Smalley. Now, dipping down into the 7K range. There's a lot of boom or bust guys sitting at the top, like Gary Woodland, Patrick Rogers, JJ Spawn. All three of those guys absolutely have the talent to win this week, absolutely have the unpredictability to miss the cut by 7 shots. I think the mid 7K range is where I'm going to play a lot of guys from this week, starting off with some of y'all that have been long-term listeners know this was coming. My guy, Akshay Bhatia. Akshay actually grew up in North Carolina as well. He was going to play his college golf at NC State before he ended up turning pro and going for the Korn Ferry Tour. So we know that he knows how to play North Carolina golf. Also, he has been absolutely dynamite in the ball striking categories lately. In each of his last 2 starts, he gained over 8 strokes in the ball striking categories, and he's gained strokes total in the ball striking categories in 5 straight events. Akshay tends to be pretty bad on the greens, but if he's familiar with North Carolina golf, if he's familiar with Bermuda greens, I kind of think that plays in his advantage just a little bit, and I kind of hope that I had been saying it for a long time that he was eventually going to win. He was too talented to not win. Well, guess what? He finally got his win, and I think he's going to be hungry for more. Now he knows how to win golf tournaments. So I really do think that Akshay's got a massive ceiling. And thanks to a very weird and kind of, I don't know what the right word to use is. I don't want to say unfair, but not really super known rule. He's not currently qualified for the FedEx Cup Playoffs, even though he won the Barracuda Championship. For whatever reason, he didn't get FedEx Cup points for that win. So he's got a lot of motivation to show up here this week and try to win this golf tournament so that he can try to play his way into the FedEx Cup Playoffs. Another guy that I like this week is Eric Cole. And Eric Cole, I think this is a course that mitigates his weaknesses. Eric Cole is not a good driver of the golf ball. That is verifiably true. But the Wyndham doesn't require you to be some bomber off the tee. It doesn't require you to hit every fairway. It just requires you to have small misses and avoid trouble like the woods or water. And Eric Cole tends to do that. He doesn't really show out with the driver, but he doesn't lose tournaments with the driver either. So what I do like about Eric Cole is that he tends to be a pretty good putter. He tends to be a pretty good approach player. So I'm willing to bet with Eric Cole that his weakness is not going to be defined here at Sedgefield Country Club. And I do think this could be a good spot for Eric Cole for that reason. Next up is Billy Horschel, who is trending in the right direction. So Billy Horschel, like Justin Thomas, is a guy that I thought was just absolutely broken earlier this calendar year. Just miscuts galore earlier in the calendar year. But he really righted the ship last week in Minnesota at the 3M Open. He came in 13th place, which is his best finish since the match play. Or I'm sorry, since the partner event, the Zurich Classic. So it was his best event in a stroke play format since last October. So, pretty good sign for Billy Horschel, that finish. But I really like the fact that, he's kind of just getting back on track. He's certainly, when you look at the golfers in this range, he's the most talented of them. I think he makes for a very good bet to win this tournament because I think he's one of the few guys at his price tag that has the upside to win this tournament. And oh, by the way, he has a really good history here at the Wyndham. He's made the cut in each of his last 6 appearances at this event, and all of his last 4 appearances have been 27th place or better. He had a runner-up in 2020. 2020, 6th in 2019, and 11th in 2018. Really good course history. Talented guy who is on the right track. I really do like this spot for Billy Horschel. He's a guy who I'm going to be playing a lot at DraftKings. And if I were to make a long shot bet to win this tournament, it would probably be Billy Horschel. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, we just named all the guys that are probably going to be popular this week on DraftKings, and I want to play somebody who's not as popular. Well, let me introduce you to Thomas Dietrich. He's another guy like Akshay Bhatia that I've been saying for a long time is too talented to not win golf tournaments. I just think he keeps putting himself in position, and I think that he's eventually going to win one. He has no history at this course, but he has a good track record on shorter positional golf courses. So he came in 21st place at Colonial earlier this year, and he had a 40th place at the PGA Championship at Oak Hill, another Donald Ross design where he gained almost 3 strokes putting on those Donald Ross greens. I don't take that lightly. I do think that will help him out this week. And so I just think that you got a guy who's very talented, who is not a great driver of the golf ball. And again, like I said with Eric Cole, that's not going to be a super detriment this week because Wyndham does not place an emphasis on being long and straight with the driver. You just keep it in play off the tee, be good on your approach, and you're going to be all right here at Sedgefield. Next up, we got some kind of more value plays. A guy that I really like this week is Adam Schenk. He's along the same lines of, like I talked about with Cameron Davis, where he's either going to come in the top 10 or he's going to miss the cut. And when you look at what he's done recently, that's what he's been doing. Like, he has 4 top 7 finishes and 6 missed cuts in his last 10 starts. Like, that is a true story. Like, he is boom or bust to the highest degree. And if you're playing tournaments on DraftKings, or if you're making like a top 10 bet or an outright winner bet, why not go with a guy who has shown that level of upside? But what I really like about Adam Schenk is he's doing it at the type of tracks that Sedgefield Golf Club is. Second, outright at Colonial Country Club, lost in a playoff to Emiliano Grillo. That very well could have been a win. Second, at Copperhead, very well could have been a win also. He also made the cut at Harbortown. He also made the cut at PGA National, another shorter golf course. And he also made the cut at TBC Scottsdale, another shorter golf course. So I just really like how this type of course sets up well for Adam Schenk. His course history here has been honestly kind of garbage, but I do think that with where he's at in his career, he's a better golfer right now than he's ever been. So I'm willing to discount the course history piece of it just for the fact that I do think that this is a place that should set up well for where his game is currently at. Now, continuing out with the 7K range, I like Ben Griffin as a value play this week. Ben Griffin played his college golf at the University of North Carolina, which is about an hour down the road from Sedgefield Country Club. And y'all might know where I'm going with this. Guy knows how to play North Carolina golf, right? And what I really like about Ben Griffin is that he's able to kind of put together these consistent finishes while just being kind of like average in terms of his strokes gain categories. He has gained in between 0 and 2 strokes ball striking in every event he's played since the PGA Championship. And what is kind of, the boom or bust with him is if the around the green game is not a disaster, he tends to be pretty good. If the putter is not a disaster, he tends to be pretty good. Well, he should know how to play around the greens here at the Wyndham Championship. And oh, by the way, he did last season. He lost strokes off the tee last year and ended up coming in 4th place thanks to a really good week on approach, really good week around the green, and really good week putting. So you got a guy who clearly has some comfortability with the course, who, the weaknesses of his game were a strength last year when he played this course. So I really do like this, how this sets up for Ben Griffin. He's a guy who's going to be making my lineups this week. Next up, last guy in the 7K range that I do want to talk about is Doug Ghim. So Doug Ghim is a guy that has been in his PGA Tour career kind of hit or miss. He's gone through some good stretches. He's gone through some bad stretches. Well, ignoring the missed cut at the Renaissance Club in Scotland, this is a good stretch for Doug Ghim. He's had, other than that missed cut, 7 straight top 40 finishes, where he's been pretty much elite in the ball striking categories in every single one of those starts. I'm willing to lean into that ball striking strength of his. He's not great history here at the Wyndham, but I'm not really concerned about that because I think he's better off right now than he has been at any time before that. Now, last guy that I do want to mention in the 7K range, calling a quick audible, Ches Reavie. He's a guy who tends to play well at like Ches Reavie type courses. He's super short off the tee, but he is very accurate. He's very good with his short irons and wedges. Well, guess what? That should set up well here at Sedgefield. That's kind of what he did at TBC River Highlands, and it's kind of what he does at, just kind of all these shorter positional golf courses. His history at the Wyndham is also kind of hit or miss. He tends to make more cuts than he's missed, but he does have some top tens as well as some missed cuts. I do think this is a pretty good spot for Ches Reavie. I'm willing to go back to him at what I think is a very cheap price tag on DraftKings. Now, the 6K range on DraftKings could be totally ignored. I think there's enough value at the low end of the 7K range that if you want to play guys that are in the 9K or the low 10K range, you can fill out your lineup with those guys and be totally fine. But there are some guys that are worth talking about in a 6K range if you do want to get down in here. I think it's a pretty weak 6K range, if I'm being honest. Dylan Wu has been pretty good all season. Last week, he had one of the best putting performances of the season. So I tend to think that's a little bit fluky. I'm willing to let other people chase that. Justin Lauer should be a pretty good course fit. Made the cut here last year. Matthew Neesmith is a guy that I like a lot for this place. He is one of the best fairway finders on all of the PGA Tour, and this is a course that should kind of accentuate that strength of his. Tends to be pretty bad with the putter, but if you're putting yourself in good position off the fairway and with your irons, this could be a pretty good spot for Matthew Neesmith. His game also tends to show up more at shorter golf courses. Carson Young is another guy who tends to show up better at shorter golf courses. He did burn a lot of people by missing the cut last week. And another guy who shows up well at shorter golf courses is going to be David Lingmerth. There was a run in the fall where pretty much every time it was at a shorter golf course in the fall of 2022, you could play David Lingmerth, you'd get a made cut, you'd get a pretty good finish. Third at the Scottish Open recently, made the cut at the Open Championship. Matthew Neesmith is a good fairway finder. I would not mind going down to David Lingmerth. Zach Blair is another guy who could fit the course pretty well also. Now, there are two other guys here in the 7K range that I do want to highlight, and the first is Peter Quest. So we've talked about this all season long with the young guys like Peter Quest and Ludwig Aberg and Sam Bennett. We don't really know what they are in their PGA Tour career yet, but I think Peter Quest, when all said and done, is going to be a significantly more talented golfer than the guys he's priced around. When you look at what he's done recently, he's tended to be really good in the ball striking categories, and he has a chance to be really good with the putter. And I'm kind of willing to buy into that this week. The performance that I really like was his T4 at Detroit Golf Club, where he gained 7 strokes ball striking and gained 3.75 strokes putting on Donald Ross greens. So I really do think this is a pretty good spot for Peter Quest for that reason. I'm willing to bet on the unknown talent. Now, this is a really, really slimy play, but you got Rory Sabatini sitting here at the minimum price on DraftKings. He's been objectively bad in pretty much the last 2 seasons, but he had a 16th place finish at Copperhead earlier this year. It's a course that we talked about a few times already, shorter positional golf course. You tend to see a little crossover success with the Wyndham. And his history at the Wyndham has been pretty doggone good. He came in 10th place here in 2021, made the cut here last year, even though he was very bad in the ball striking categories, 6th in 2019, 4th in 2017. I really do kind of like that for Rory Sabatini. The one caution I would kind of give is that his 10th place finish here in 2021 was right after he played in the Olympics and won himself a silver medal. So he did show a little bit of a semblance of form coming into the Wyndham that week before he did come in the top 10. But I don't know. I just think there's been worse min price plays on DraftKings over the course of the entire season. He's a guy that I wouldn't mind throwing, one lineup with him in it. All right, now that does it for kind of the DFS and the betting part of it. Let's talk about one and done real quick. So in one and dones, your one and done should have 3 weeks left because your one and done should not be doing the Tour Championship. I will die on that hill. Anyway, you've got this week and you've got the 2 FedEx Cup playoff events. It is worth noting that only the top 70 guys will be in those FedEx Cup playoff events, and they are no-cut events, so they are guaranteed paychecks. So I kind of like the idea of going as aggressive as possible this week because even if, say, you use Hideki this week, so what if you wanted to use Hideki next week or the next week? Like, you're going to have somebody else available that is guaranteed a paycheck. So I kind of think that you can just go bombs away this week and just play, the guy you like the most out of anybody you have left available. Now, I had saved Tom Kim for this event because I thought this set up really well for Tom Kim. He was coming in as the defending champ. He really showed some good form on his way in, but Tom Kim's not playing. So I got to find a backup plan. Fortunately, I have Sung J M available. I have Danny McCarthy available. I have Cameron Davis available in one of my one and dones. I have JT Poston available in one of my one and dones. So I do think that this is a spot where just go with the guy you like the most this week and be willing to figure out the next 2 weeks. Like I know, for instance, I know I've got Xander Schauffele in both of my one and dones available. And so I know that one of those weeks is going to be Xander Schauffele, and I'm confident that I can piece together the other two, even if I'm missing somebody from this week. Like if I play Sung J M or Hideki this week, I'm confident I can find another guy to put in that spot next week. Now keep in mind, we're also running out of time here in one and done. So if you need to gain ground, you might want to get a little bit funky this week and play somebody a little further down the board that has some winning upside that might be able to gain you some ground. Somebody like a Cam Davis, somebody like an Alex Smalley. I think that would be a place to start if you need to gain ground. All right, that does it for the Wyndham Championship 2023 preview. If you were watching on YouTube and you like what you saw, please like and subscribe to the video. It really does help me out a lot. If you subscribe, you'll be notified when new episodes drop, like our preview of Live Greenbrier. And if you're also more interested in other golf content, check out the channel feed. I have got a video for the Pup Cup, which is underdogs draft for the FedEx Cup Playoffs. It's a very different style format of contest. I really enjoyed it. I do think I did a good job on it. So check that out. It is the last week that you can do that this week with the FedEx Cup Playoffs starting next week. All right, so hopefully you guys were able to get some good information here from this preview. Hopefully I was able to give you a little bit of local knowledge of Sedgefield Country Club. I really would love to get out there and play that course one day. That way maybe I could give you guys some more knowledge someday. But anyway, hopefully I was able to help you guys, give you guys some good information that will help you win your bets, win in DFS, and win in your one and done this week. Thank you guys for watching or listening to this point, and I will see you next time.